Welcome to today's spine-tingling RootsMagic webinar. My name is Michael Booth, and I'm Vice President of RootsMagic and one of its developers. And also with us this afternoon is the Roots Magician himself, Bruce Busby. And Bruce, of course, is the President of RootsMagic and its author. Now, even the most careful family historian can make a mistake while recording family relationships. A person married to the wrong or an unknown spouse, a child linked twice to the same set of parents, or a man listed as his own grandpa. But tonight we'll show you how to use RootsMagic to painlessly fix these mistakes and straighten out those tangles in your family tree. And with that introduction, I'll turn the time over to Bruce.
Hey, thanks for joining us. Okay, this has actually been a webinar that our tech support folks have been asking us to do for quite some time, and we didn't realize how popular that this particular webinar would be until we posted a thing about it up on Facebook and got way more likes and shares and everything than we normally would get. So let's go ahead and we're going to jump right into this. We're going to show you, I've got a database right here. This is just a fake database, but it has a number of those common linking problems that you may run across in your database. Now, there's any number of reasons why this could happen. You might just have entered the data wrong. You might have done, some kind of manipulation with your data that may have caused a duplicate. Sometimes when you do merging, you can end up with duplicate information. So whatever the cause, we're going to go through and show you some of these situations where you have incorrect links and show you how to take care of those. Now, what I advise, one of the first things I recommend if you're going to be trying to fix data in your database is to turn on the record numbers, okay? And in other words, that way you can see the actual record number that RootsMagic assigns to each person. Now, the way you do that is you go up to the Tools menu, and then you come down here to File Options, and then right here on this first General File Options page, the number to display after the name, and you change that to the record number, not the reference number, not the Family Search ID. You want the record number, what some programs call a RIN. You click OK, and what you're going to see is RootsMagic is now showing you the record number for each person in your file. Now, the reason I recommend this is because sometimes when you are working on cleaning up your database, you may have two copies of the same person. For example, you might have Howard Smith Sr., and there may actually be really two copies of him in your file. One of them might be record number 99, and the other one might be record number 700 or 800. If you have two different records, the way you'll handle cleaning up your database is different than if you have a single record linked in to two different places. Okay, if you have two copies of that same person, then what you're going to want to do is merge those duplicate records. So if I have a Howard Smith Sr. with one record number and another Howard Smith Sr. with another record number, you're going to want to merge those records. And I'm not going to spend really any time on merging because we've done a whole webinar just on merging. But what you can do is select the person, one copy of that person, and click the little merge button up on the toolbar. That'll bring up that person, and you select the other copy of that person that has a different record number, and then you will merge them. That will take those two different Howard Smith Seniors in this case and combine or merge them into one copy. When you do that, of course, if each one of those different Howard Smith Seniors each had a set of different parents or different spouses or different children, you may end up having to merge those duplicate spouses, parents, or children as well. So if you're in that situation where you've got a lot of duplicate records, I recommend going and watching the webinar that we did on merging. Okay, So let's go ahead and take a look at a few of the situations you might encounter. Now, when you select a person, as you move from person to person, when you highlight a person, RootsMagic shows you that person's vital information right here. But it also shows you some information about that person here as well. So I can see when I highlight Howard Smith Sr. that he has 2 spouses and he has 2 sets of parents. Now, I'm going to go ahead and look at the spouses. I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to see that he's linked to 2 spouses, but they're the same person, Phoebe Sophia Davis. Phoebe Sophia Davis, they're both record number 66, which means he is actually linked to that same person twice. Okay, not 2 different Phoebe Sophia Davises. If those 2 numbers were different, that would mean there were 2 Phoebe Sophia Davises in my file, and I would want to go merge those 2 Phoebe Sophia Davises as I mentioned. But in this case, they're actually the same person. Now you'll notice in one of those families, he has 5 children. The other family, he has no children. That is usually what you're going to see when you have a person linked up to the same spouse more than one time. Okay, you're going to usually have one that shows the entire family. Now I can actually switch. I can highlight him, and if I want, I can switch to the family view. That's another way to look at this. And I can see I've got Howard Smith and Phoebe and their children. And I can see right here, Howard has 2 spouses. When I click on that, I'm going to see it's both of the Phoebes. Okay, the one with the check mark, that's the one I've got showing on my screen right now. That's what the little check mark means, is that's the one currently displayed. If I switch to this other Phoebe Sophia Davis, I can see that right here I have my Howard Smith Sr. and Phoebe and no children. Okay, now what I'm going to want to do, in this case, there's actually 2 different ways I can do this. And I'm going to show you the one way to do this, but I will actually come back and show you the other way with another situation. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Howard, and I am going to say Edit, Unlink from Spouse. So I'm going to unlink him from his spouse here. Okay, I want to make sure though that the spouse that I have showing on this screen is the one I really want to unlink from, and this is the one because this is the one that has no children. If I were to unlink him from the spouse with the children, I'm basically taking him out of the family, but Phoebe and the children would all still be linked together. So when I do that, RootsMagic is going to say, do I want to unlink that highlighted person, Howard Smith Sr., as a parent in this family? I'm going to go ahead and say yes, unlink. Okay, now you'll see it's now showing Howard with Phoebe, with the children, and Howard now only has the 1 spouse. Okay, so that's how I can unlink him from that duplicate spouse. Okay, it's pretty easy. You just go in, show the family with him, with the spouse that you want him unlinked from, and just do the unlink. Okay, let's move on, and I'm going to show you another little situation which is similar. And you'll notice when I highlight Howard, up here it says he has 2 sets of parents. Now if I click on that, you'll see once again I have him showing with the same set of parents. I've got him linked somehow to with 2 different sets of parents. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to actually unlink him from one of those. Now usually you're not going to notice that from right here. When you're looking at this screen, you're not going to really notice that he has 2 sets of parents. The place you're going to notice it is when you go to his parents screen. Okay, here's his parents, and this is where you're going to notice it, that he's linked in twice as a child in that same family. Okay, now this is a little bit trickier to do this because it's going to take a couple of steps in order to kind of clean this one up. Now, what I can do is I can go select either one of these, and it doesn't matter which one I pick because they have the same record number. So they actually are, this is the same Howard Smith. It's the same record inside of my file. It's just linked into this family twice. Okay, there's actually a question I see up here about the unlinked spouse. Is the duplicate spouse still in the system? The answer to that, we're going back to the previous one where I unlinked the person from their spouse. The answer is yes, that duplicate spouse was the same record. It was the same physical record inside of my database. So when I unlink them, I don't want that to disappear because I want to keep the one he is linked to. I want to keep that record. I just only want it linked one time. So all I was doing was unlinking. When I do unlink, I do not delete any records from the file. Unlink means unlink. It does not mean delete. It means unlink this husband from this copy of this wife. That wife is still in the database, and she needed to be to stay linked in the original one. Okay, hopefully I didn't confuse too many people with that little side note. But the point is, in a similar manner, this Howard and this Howard are the same record. If I double click on this Howard to look at it, and I look at him right there, if I double click on this Howard, this is the same record. If I make a change right here to this person, it's going to change both of them because they're the same record. All I want is to only have this record linked into this family one time instead of linked in two times. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select one of them, and it doesn't matter which one because they're the same record. And I'm going to go up to Edit and Unlink. And this time, instead of saying Unlink from spouse, I'm going to say Unlink from parents. So I'm going to unlink them from the parents. And you notice it's saying, do you want to unlink the highlighted person as a child? You'll notice that it's actually highlighting both copies. And this is what I mean by it being a little tricky. When I say unlink from parents, it's actually going to unlink both copies of him. So I need to remember who this is so I can go link him back in the one time. So when I'm saying unlink, I'm actually unlinking the doubled up links. So I'm going to say unlink, and you'll notice he has now disappeared. He is not in as the child list anymore. Now, he is still in my file, sitting there loose, but he's just not linked into this family anymore. So I want to link him back in as a child, so I'm going to highlight either the father or the mother, and I'm going to say add a child. Okay, this is kind of the same as when I add a brand new child. The difference is that I'm going to actually tell it to select an existing person. I'm not going to add a new person for the child. I'm going to select somebody that's already in the file because Howard Smith Sr. is already there. And this is the parents I want to add the child to. So I select the existing person, and I pick Smith, Howard, and I want Howard Smith Sr. That's the child I want to link back into the family, and I'm going to select him. And it's basically then saying, do I want to add any more children to this family? No, I don't. I just wanted that one. And then it's asking me to rearrange these children in the right order. Now, I could just click Howard and drag and drop him into whatever position I want, or I can just say sort by birth date, and it'll sort the whole group of children all at once. Okay, so it's putting him up here where he belongs. I click OK, and now I have Howard Smith Sr. in this family, but only once. Okay, so like I say, this works a little bit different. When I have the same spouse, which was the first situation, I can say unlink from spouse, and that will unlink him from that one spouse, and that takes care of it. When I am linked to parents more than once, when I say unlink from parents, it's going to completely remove him from that family. And that's nice because if I happen to have that person in there somehow 3 or 4 times as a child, it takes care of them all at once. It gets all of them out of the family, and then I do the add child, select an existing person, and pick them, and that will link them back in the one time like I want them. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to a situation that's kind of similar to that first one. The first one we did, the person was linked to the same spouse twice. What you'll sometimes have, though, is I'm going to pop back to here, and I'm going to go here to Lehigh Davis. Now, Lehigh Davis, you'll notice it shows he has 2 spouses. When I click on that, one of those spouses, the one that's currently displayed and has the check mark, is Eliza Barnum. That's who's showing right here. And the other one is this infamous unknown spouse. Okay, the unknown spouse can occur for a number of reasons. A lot of times it has to do with when you're doing a lot of merging. What the unknown spouse usually means is you will usually have at least one child in that family. Because what the unknown spouse means is you have, in this case, Lehigh linked to this one child in a separate family, but the spouse is unknown. Now, here's why this one's a little bit trickier. If I go and I select Lehigh and I go over to the family view, okay, I can see Lehigh has 2 spouses. If I switch to the unknown spouse, okay, I'm going to see that I have Lehigh and I have the unknown spouse here and I have this child. Well, I can't select the mother and unlink. I can't do the unlink from spouse the same way I did in the first one. This one requires a special little trick. Basically, whenever you have an unknown spouse that you don't want, what that means is you have a family record. You have a family unit in your file that you don't want to be there anymore. Okay, so the way you get rid of the unknown spouse, you can do this from any of the views, but the family view I find is the easiest to visualize. You go to the screen where the spouse is missing, and it doesn't matter whether it's the father with the unknown mother or a mother with an unknown father. It doesn't matter which way. You go to the family that has the unknown spouse that you want to get rid of that, and you go up to Edit, and instead of doing Unlink, you do Delete. And you say, I want to delete this family. Okay? What you're saying is, I want to delete this family, this father, mother, children. Okay? When you do that, RootsMagic's going to give you 2 options. One is actually delete the family. It means go delete the father, delete the mother, delete the kids, get rid of the family, all the linkings. That's not the one you want. In fact, you very rarely actually want to use that command. That's kind of a dangerous little command. That's why it's not the default. What you actually want is the unlink these people as a family, but leave them all in the file. If I am going to select that with here, what it's going to mean is I'm going to unlink Lehigh and this unknown mother and Phoebe right here as a family. They're all going to be unlinked from each other, but they're still going to be linked to the other people. So Lehigh will still be linked to his other spouse and his children. He'll also still be linked to his parents. Phoebe will still be linked to her spouse if she was married and her children. They're all linked to everybody else. They're only unlinked from each other here. So this is how I can get rid of this unknown spouse. So when I say unlink the family members, I go ahead and click the delete button. Okay, and when that is supposed to get rid of them. Oh, it did get rid of them. Okay, so when I highlight Lehigh, I now only have Eliza, and I have those children. Apparently, my system's running a little slow and hadn't updated yet there. Okay, so this is how I can get rid of that infamous unknown spouse, is go to the family view, bring up the family with the unknown spouse you want to get rid of, and do the Edit, Delete Family, and choose the option to unlink the family members from each other, but leave them inside of the file. Okay, let's go try another possible problem that you might run into. Okay, and this time I'm going to go over here to, okay, where is he? Samuel Jones. Okay, I'm going to go to this family right here. Okay, and I'm going to switch to this family. Now you'll notice in this family, I have a child who, in this case, happens to be linked to the wrong set of parents. Okay, the parents are Samuel Jones and Eleanor Bainbridge, but this child, in this case, maybe this child happens to be the brother of Eleanor. Okay, it's a Bainbridge, not a Jones. Okay, this is a two-step process. Okay, this is a process where I need to unlink Joseph from this set of parents and link him in to the proper set of parents. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight Joseph, and we've used these commands in the past, just in the previous things. We're just kind of using them in a different order. I'm going to take Joseph, and I'm going to go up to Edit and unlink him from his parents. That's what I want to do. I want to remove him from this family. And RootsMagic asks, do you want to unlink him from these parents? I'm going to say yes. And so I have now unlinked him from those parents. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and switch now to the family that he belongs in. Okay, so he belongs to Joseph Bainbridge and Jane Welch, and I want to add him as a child here. So I can either go click to add a child, or I can go up to the menu and do add a child. Either way, and RootsMagic is going to come up, and it's going to say, do you want to add a child to Joseph and Jane? Yes, I do. And do I want to add a new person, or do I want to select an existing person? Again, this is where they are already in the database. So I'm going to say I want to select the existing person. And this was Joseph Bainbridge Jr. is the one that I want. I'm going to select him. And it's basically said, okay, I've added him in here. Do I want to add another child? No. And do I want to sort them? I'm just going to go ahead and sort them. Okay, and I'm going to tell it okay. And I've now linked him into the proper family. Okay, so what I've done, when I have a child in the wrong family, I want to unlink them from the family they don't belong in. And again, like I said before, when I unlink somebody, it doesn't remove them. Unlink is completely different from delete. Delete takes that person and removes them from the file. They're not in the file anymore. Unlink leaves that person in the file, but just unhooks them from whoever I told it to. So if I say unlink from spouse, all it does is unlinks them out of this particular family. They're still linked to their parents and all the other people they were linked to. It only unlinks them from this one family. Okay, if I do unlink from parents, it only unlinks them from this family. It just removes them as a child, but they're still connected to their spouse and kids and all of that. I then go back into the add commands, and all of the add commands except for individual. So add spouse, add parents, or add child, all three of those will have the option to add a new person or to select somebody already in the file. So when you have a link to the wrong person, when somebody's linked to the wrong family, it's basically go in, unlink them from the family, either as a spouse or as a child. Those are your two options. Unlink them as a parent or unlink them as a child. And go back in and say add the spouse or parents or child and select the existing person to link them to somebody that's already in there. Okay. I'm going to come back here to the pedigree view again because I want to get back to another person here. Okay, I'm going to go to this family, Thomas William Jones. Okay, now this is a situation that you'll occasionally find. Okay, actually I guess it's, nope, that's not the right one. Okay, Thomas K. Jones is the one I want. Okay, this is the one I want right here. Okay, occasionally you will find a situation like this where you'll have the family, you'll have the father, the mother, and then in the children, you'll have this little blank row. And the sex will usually say that they're male, and there won't be any data in it. This is what's called a ghost child. And we honestly have no idea how these ghost children appear. We've never really seen it in our own. I actually had to go in and actually modify the data file itself in order to even get this one to show up for me. But we do have users that sometimes get this phantom child. Now, the problem with this phantom child is this child doesn't actually exist, even though they show as a blank row right there. When you try to delete it, see if I go in and say edit, delete person, it's going to say I have to highlight a person because this is not a real child. It's a phantom. So you can't just delete them. You also can't unlink them. If I go in and say edit, unlink from parents, it's not going to let me do that either. It's going to say you have to highlight a person. So how do you get rid of a phantom child? Well, in a very recent version, make sure that you have the current version of RootsMagic. What we've done is if you go to File and go into our new database tools, this is a feature we added in version 5, okay, choose Rebuild Indexes. Now, Rebuild Indexes does a number of other things, but in addition to that, we've added the code to delete these phantom children. So if I do Rebuild Indexes, okay, it says re-indexing complete, okay, and it just changed the family because actually I shouldn't have been highlighting that person when I did that. So let's go ahead and bring up this family. You'll see that phantom child is now gone, okay. So that's one, those phantom children, that's not really a situation where you have somebody linked into the wrong place. That's a situation where you have a non-existent thing linked in as a child. And there's a non-existent record linked in as a child. Okay, so whenever you have a phantom child or a ghost child or whatever you want to call it, just again, go to File, Database Tools, and just say Rebuild the Indexes, and that will take care of all of your ghost children. So if you have ghost children in several different families, you only have to do that once, and it's going to take care of all of that for you. I have a question, can I do that again? I can show you how I did it, but that's the only ghost child I had, so it's not going to really show you much. But yeah, what you would do is you'd click on File and go down here to Database Tools and click on Rebuild Indexes. And again, that'll rebuild the indexes, and that will get rid of any of those ghost children. Okay, somebody actually asked, can you edit the ghost child and give them a phony name? No, again, you can't do that because it's not actually a child. So you can't edit them, you can't delete them, you can't do anything. That's why we actually put in that ability to go in there to delete, to remove those ghost children. Okay, the last one I have actually on my list of things, and this is one we actually see probably a lot more often than I suspected we ever would. And this is what is sometimes known as I'm my own grandpa type of thing, or somebody being their own grandpa. Now, there was a song written about that, about how somebody's father married their, whatever, and the person ended up being their own grandpa. Well, that actually in real life could happen, but the situation I'm going to show you is not a legitimate situation. It's one where you accidentally add the wrong person. And here I'm going to go ahead and show you. I'm going to move up this line right here. I'm going to go to Howard Smith Jr., Howard Smith Sr., James Smith. Okay, we're going to have another James Smith. We're going to go to Daniel Smith. We're going to go to James Smith. And at this point, we are stuck because what's going to happen, you'll notice that little arrow says there's more people. When I go up, Daniel Smith, James, Daniel, James, Daniel, James, Daniel. What has happened here is a person has been added as their own grandfather. Okay, you'll notice that this will go on forever. I will never reach the end of this line because it's going from Daniel 155, and this is another reason why I suggested turning on those record numbers. 155 Daniel to James 137, back to Daniel 155, James 137, Daniel 155. Again, if I could keep going through here, James 137, Daniel 155, James 137, Daniel 155. What's happened is, in this case, I said James's father is Daniel, and then said Daniel's father is James, the same James. So in other words, Daniel, we're saying his son and his father are both the same person. Okay. Now, what that causes is this endless loop. Now, I did this as making a person their own grandfather, but that's not the only situation. A person could also be set as their great-grandfather, their great-great-grandfather, and so on. This basically can create this endless loop, and you really don't even really notice this until you actually start going through one of these lines, or sometimes when you try to create a report and you see that it seems like it wants to continue forever, that's when you may notice that you've got one of these endless loops in here. Okay, so the way you fix that is you're going to go in and basically you know that somebody is linked wrong somewhere. And so the way to do that is to go until you find somebody who obviously was linked in incorrectly as a parent. Okay, so if I look at James Smith, he was born in 1793. So I know his father darn well better have been born before 1793. So I go up to Daniel, okay, 1766. Okay, that was before 1793, so that still looks okay. Okay, now I take Cat. I know his father should be born before 1766. Okay, oh, 1793. Okay, well, I know his father wasn't born, you know, almost 30 years after he was, so I know that this link right there is the incorrect one. Okay, that's where I know that I need to get rid of that. And so all I have to do is select Daniel Smith, go up to Edit, and again, Unlink from Parents, because I want to unlink Daniel from James and Betsy, the parents. And it's going to say, are you sure you want to unlink it? I'm going to say yes. And now I'm back to James, Daniel, and it ends. Now, if I happen to have Daniel's real parents, I can actually select Daniel here, and then I can go up and say Add Parents, and then choose the existing parents if they happen to have already been entered, or add new people. Usually what happens is when you have these endless loop kind of links, it's usually because you have actually said, you've actually added the person, and when you go to add their spouse, or excuse me, when you go to add their parents, you selected an existing person and picked the wrong James Smith. You know, it's easy to have a bunch of James Smiths. It's easy to have a bunch of people in your file with the same name. Our ancestors, a lot of times, were not real clever with, you know, how they named their children. You know, so a lot of times you have a whole bunch of the same name, okay? And they may not be in your database as junior or senior or the third or fourth or fifth or whatever. And so that, again, is another good reason to go ahead and leave that record number on, because that way, if you happen to have a whole line of James Smiths, you can say, this is James Smith, person number 125, 137, and you can go up through the list and see that you are not repeating any of these record numbers. Okay, that's another way to go and see, is as you move from line to line, if all of a sudden you see a record number that you already passed through earlier, that's a good indication that you may have one of these endless loops. Okay, so that's an overview of the different kinds of incorrect links that you might run into. I'm not seeing too many questions other than, like I say, the ones about where do unlinked people go. Hopefully, if you just keep in mind that when you delete a person or you delete a record, that person's record disappears from the file. If you unlink a person, that person's data stays in the file, and that person is just unconnected from the family that you told them to. They're still connected to all their other families, but they're still connected to all their family. Now, I'm going to give you a kind of an example here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and Howard Smith Sr., okay, he has this one family. He's only got the one spouse, so he's basically got this one family. I'm going to highlight Howard Smith Sr., and I'm going to say Edit, Unlink from spouse. Okay, in other words, I'm going to remove him as a spouse in that family, so Howard Smith Jr. won't have a father entered in this file. Okay, and it's going to say, are you sure? I'm going to say yes. Okay, so now when I look at this, there's my Howard Smith Jr., and it's not showing him with a father. Now, I unlinked Howard Smith Sr., but you'll notice all these other people are not showing either. Okay, they are still in the file as well. I did not delete all of these people. All I did is I took that little check section of the tree and I unhooked. This one link, I broke it, and so it's not connected here. Now, Howard Smith Sr. in this file is still connected to his parents and their parents and so on. In fact, if I wanted to see that, I could go find him, and I could go to Smith, Howard. Okay, Howard Smith Sr. is still in the file. I'm going to select him. There he is. Okay, there's Howard Smith Sr. with his parents and their parents. All of those links are still intact. The only link I broke was that link between him and his wife and kids. Okay, so if I were to go back to Howard Smith Jr. and say I want to add his father back in, okay, I'm going to click to add his father, and I'm going to go ahead and say add parents, and it's going to say, do I want to add the father to this existing family? Okay, in other words, do I want to add somebody to him and to this wife and those children? I'm going to say yes, add to that family. And I'm not going to add a new person. I'm going to say select existing person, and I'm going to pick that Howard Smith Sr. Okay, there's that Howard Smith Sr. Okay, I'm going to pick him. When I select it, you notice it linked him back in as the father, but it also brought in everybody else that he was connected to. Okay, so that's basically, like I say, that's an overview of unlinking and add existing person. So with you unlink, you basically are unattaching them from the family, and when you say add a person and say select the existing person, you are linking him plus everybody else that he's linked to back into that family. Okay, let's kind of look at a few of these questions. When an unknown spouse was unlinked, it didn't automatically attach the child to the right family. I'm not quite sure I understand that question. When you unlink a person, when you unlink an unknown spouse, if that unknown spouse if there were children in that, when you did that delete family and you kind of unlinked all those people from each other, those children would have been unlinked from that family. They would still be linked to any other families that they were already linked to. If they weren't linked to any other families, you may need to go and get those children that were in that family that got unlinked, and you may need to link them back into the correct family. Okay. Somebody wants to know how to turn on the show record number. I'll repeat that one more time. You go to Tools, you come down to File Options, and right on that main File Options page, the number to display after the name. And you want the record number. The record number is the number that RootsMagic automatically adds to each person when you create that person. When you add a new person, RootsMagic automatically assigns that number. The reason you want to use that record number is because every record in the file is going to have a different record number. Okay, so in other words, if you see two people with the exact same name and they have different record numbers, that means they are in your file twice. The actual person is in your file twice. If you see a person showing twice in the same family, but they have that same record number, it's the same person. You've just linked them in 2 times into the same family. Okay, in RootsMagic 4, I had duplicate marriages to the same spouse. Any ideas on unlinking? Okay, if you have the duplicate marriages to the same spouse, you do what I mentioned, that second one, or that first one, where you have the same spouse in there twice. You just go in and you just highlight them and unlink them from the spouse. If those spouses have different record numbers, in other words, if you have Howard Smith married to Phoebe, person number 66, and Phoebe, person number 99, then you actually want to go merge Phoebe, person 66, and Phoebe, person number 99. You want to link those two together. Okay, so it looks like this is actually, there's not too many other questions. There's one last question I'll answer here, and that is, this is one of those situations where you have a pair of sisters marrying a pair of brothers, so there's a lot of the same ancestors going back and so on. Okay, how do I keep them straight? The best way to keep them straight is by using these, paying attention to these record numbers to make sure. Okay, there are situations where links look weird but are correct, and that's one of those situations. When you have brothers marrying sisters, when you look on this pedigree view, you're going to see things like this set of group of people right here being exactly the same as maybe this group of people, and you're going to see the same record numbers. Well, like I say, if you're seeing something like that, it could mean that you have incorrect links. But if you have situations, cousin marriages, if you have brothers marrying sisters, things like that, situations where you're going to have the tree, the same set of ancestors along multiple lines, you may see that, and those are not situations that you need to fix. The one golden rule to entering people in RootsMagic is you should never have to enter the same person more than one time. Okay, once you've entered a person in the file, if you ever need that person linked in someplace else in the family because of a cousin marriage or brothers marrying sisters or anything like that, you should always use that option to add existing person or link to existing person. You don't want to have to type a person's information in twice. If you do that, you're kind of setting yourself up for troubles. So RootsMagic tries to check for duplicates, and it will ask you if you enter somebody's information that's exactly the same as somebody you've already entered, it will pop up a little message box about that. But like I say, the golden rule is if you've already entered a person in the file once and they need to be linked in someplace else, use the option to select existing person. Don't go in and type them in again, because if you type them in again, you're going to eventually need to just go in and end up either merging those duplicates or something like that. Okay, last question I'm going to answer here, and that's because I've had about 4 people ask it, even though it has nothing to do with this particular thing, is how did I color the people in my file? Just go up to Tools and go down here to Color Code People. You can do that. You can set what color and which group of people, and it will color code them. So I just color coded the 4 different family lines. So that could also be used as a help, because you can color code people any way you want, including individual people. There might be ways that you could use color coding to help you keep some of those other lines straight when you have cousins and brothers and sisters marrying each other. Anyways, I'd like to thank you for joining us. Hopefully we've been able to clear up some of this linking and unlinking and how to get rid of phantom children and those types of questions. So we'll have more webinars coming in the next several weeks. So, well, hope to see you then. And again, thanks for joining us.